Oh my gosh, McKenna, are you okay? Oh, Gooey? Gooey, hey, hey, get him off me!
Whoa.
What the heck? Jeez.
Oh,
Whew. It's the ZD YouTube crew, and we are here. We finally got Tears of the Kingdom, and we're here today.
It's
We're gonna
real.
give you. It's real. It exists. We're gonna give you our first impressions of the game. So, yeah, we're gonna be talking about a little bit about the sort of I guess the tutorial-ish section of the game. So, for people who don't want to know about that, it's probably like the first couple hours. Spoilers incoming. But we're not gonna get too deep into it. So, if you just started, it's this will be good to follow along with. So, there's so much though that I wanted to talk, or like, there's just so many things
There's a lot.
that I have going through my head playing this, and I don't even know where to begin. So I just wanted to ask everyone. Maybe we can go around. Nico, if you want to start, and I just want to know what your first impression is, just vaguely, and then we can go from there.
Sure. If I had to boil my first impression down to like a few words or phrases, I guess it would be, holy crap, this game is massive. Maybe that's one phrase, because holy crap, this game is massive. There's just so much going on, and it's not just DLC. I think I'll say that. I think those are my first impressions. It's huge, and it's way more than just a little addition to Breath of the Wild. This is its own game, and it's a whole lot of game.
For sure.
yeah.
Corey, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say it feels very familiar like Breath of the Wild, but also it feels nothing like Breath of the Wild. And it's kind of like a cooler, edgier Breath of the Wild with an entire new tool shed. It's like they had a shed next to Breath of the Wild, and they were like, you can't touch any of that stuff right now. And then they open it up, and it's like, okay, now you can use any of this stuff, and it's like the possibilities are a little like paralyzing. Like there's too much I can do.
You know, Corey, it's funny that you say that, because there are actually tool sheds that are attached to houses in Breath of the Wild that you can't open, and in Tears of the Kingdom you can open them. So that was a very straightforward metaphor. It was very, very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does. There's stuff we'll talk to. I think I have more thoughts on what you said, about it being like Breath of the Wild, that we get into, I think, more a little bit later, in talking about this game, because there's definitely more. But even in the tutorial, like the way it starts, and the Sky Island is like the Great Plateau,
like almost the same. Like minus the little beginning thing with Zelda, it's structured almost exactly like the Great Plateau.
But I have a minor thought, and I want to elaborate it, like I said, in future videos. But I feel like it feels like so much like Breath of the Wild. But I think like the things that people I'm not sure yet, but I feel like the people who have like bigger gripes with certain aspects of Breath of the Wild won't have it with this. And I feel like it won't be because the game, I think people were expecting them to turn like, or wanted them to, like when they were saying like make it more traditional Zelda, that they wanted them to like turn away from things they were introducing in Breath of the Wild. But I think what actually is good about the game is that they stuck to those things about Breath of the Wild and made them better, and fully realize them further. But I think like the tutorial isn't a big factor in that. It's pretty similar, but later stuff, just a tease. I just feel like it's like, oh, this is like Breath of the Wild, but more. And I feel like you get that sense when you do start getting down and like starting to like go back to that world, and like it gives you that impression, I think, like right away.
Oh yeah.
McKenna, what about you, McKenna?
Yeah, what was your first impression?
So I had some lofty expectations for this game, or Guy Lofty, perhaps.
Oh.
And I gotta say, it exceeds expectations quite a bit. It's like everything I wanted uh from Breath of the Wild, anything I would have added has been added, and then even more that I couldn't even have imagined them adding. It's
Yeah.
it's
Like sheds that you
bigger.
can go into.
Yeah, they added
Yeah.
sheds.
I thought you said like Shad, and I was like, is that guy back?
Whoa.
Oh
It's
gosh.
it's bigger, but it's
This is Zonai
also
researcher
more substantial. It's meaty.
It
very
is.
meaty.
Yes. And that was my biggest hope that I said in the last game, or in the last video we did before the game came out. My biggest hope was that they would make the world and the side quests, feel like so much more important and impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty early on, so like I will say there's probably like time for me, like who knows, 30 hours later to be like, okay, I've done this a lot. Like I wonder how long the game can maintain this, but I have been playing for over a dozen hours, and I'm still finding myself being like, holy cow, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, and like being compelled to go back to and talking to the same NPCs over and over and seeing like if anything's gonna change, and like seeing things change and develop. Like they're like, just by doing these little tiny side quests, like I just feel like they've really expanded like the side quests and the activities you can do, and
Yeah.
it's a lot more interesting to me, I think, initially than like, you place an apple in the cup. Which there's stuff like that in this still too. I think there's probably even more of that, but there's just so much else going on that just feels like seasoning a little bit, as opposed to like, this is what I do most of the time,
Yeah, I think a big thing with this is that like the gameplay loop of Breath of the Wild, as open as and expansive as the game was, it felt like you were doing like the same 2 or 3 things over and over. Like enemy camps weren't super in depth. They were usually just like, oh, here's 3 or 4 bokoblins and a moblin up on a little fort, and there would maybe be a chest. Now there's more than that, and their bases are a little more intricate. They have a couple extra friends. Maybe there's some side quests involved with them, but the gameplay loop of Tears of the Kingdom is definitely more like I said previously. It's more about experimenting. Like you're building stuff. You're trying to figure out how to get into different places. There's a spot you can get to in the distance, and instead of being like, cool, I can walk there, it's okay, what do I want to do to get there this time? Can I build a Zonai device? Can I warp? Should I fly there? Like what do I want to do? There's a billion options. And so I think overall I'm not getting sick of it, even though I've streamed it for like yesterday I streamed it for 10 hours. 6 the day before, 6 the day before, today 6.
Wow.
And like every moment I'm like, oh, I guess I should stop because I like have to like eat food and be a human. But I don't get sick of any of it. I want to do it all. I want to do all of it over and over. I just want to keep playing.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
I don't think I've played for as many hours as you guys, but like you can feel the variety of things you can do and places you can go, and just like from the minute stuff like solving a puzzle in a shrine. Breath of the Wild had that sense of like, the world is my oyster, I can solve this in many different types of ways. But now with like Ultra Hand and the fusing mechanism and recall and all of your abilities and stuff, it feels even more so like you can jerry rig things to work and get that kind of satisfaction of like, I don't know if that was right, but I did it.
Oh yeah.
And then just for like traversing the overworld, it's like that's one way that so far it does feel very much like Breath of the Wild to me. It
Mhm.
has that sense of exploration where it's just like you see something in the distance, you're like, I'm gonna go check that out, and then 2 seconds later, you're like, but wait a minute, there's something over here, so I'm gonna go over there instead and do
Oh
that.
yeah.
But now, if for any reason you decide that you're sick of going from point A to point B on the surface, you can be like, well, let me just go to the complete other underworld
Yep.
or the overworld
Mhm.
in the sky,
Yes.
Mhm.
which both travel completely differently from the regular overworld.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And in terms of the world, or McKenna, did you have anything to add to that? Just in
So
terms of,
you
okay, sorry. In terms of the world, my my hidden like fear that I had this whole time of like, oh yeah, like am I gonna feel like I'm in the same area? I think it was really smart for them to kind of take the area that they make the and granted you can go pretty much anywhere in the game. So like we're talking about this like you have to be there, but it still has that thing of like it seems like you could just screw off from Lookout Landing and never go
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Maybe not never. I don't know. I
Well, you
don't know
gotta get
yet.
you gotta get the paraglider, probably.
I don't think you have to
No,
though,
you
do
can
you?
you can
Have
straight up.
to, but that would be very hard.
Yeah, you can just leave. You can just go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Well, anyway though, like I think it was really smart to make it. I like the region for one. It's in like the central region, which for
Mhm.
me was always kind of like a pass-through region. Now it's like built up.
That was Dark Beast Ganon's battlefield.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
That's it.
exactly. Um, so that and like putting a bunch of new stuff there. I have not felt like really that I like you know what I mean that this is it doesn't have that feeling
Yeah.
of like oh this is the same feels like the same world which is cool and I have now gone to to like I said we don't have to get into it but I have gone to places that are more memorable to me from Breath of the Wild and it's like it for one like around the areas doesn't feel the same and then when you get there the memorable things like because of how the changes like it feels awesome. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
it's like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, that's another one where I'm like, oh, I guess I'll see how the game goes on as I visit more of the
Mhm.
more memorable locations. But I haven't even had that, like, it's just barely been in my mind playing this game. Other than when I'm like playing it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I
Oh
can't
yeah.
believe it,
I've had it almost like I haven't had to worry about it, but not just it's like I'm not even I know the locations, but it doesn't feel familiar to me at all.
Mm-mm.
Like I knew I was
I
in
keep getting
Central
lost.
Hyrule. Yeah, I knew I was in Central Hyrule, but I'm looking around like where the heck is everything? Like where do I go?
Oh
And
yeah.
you mentioned like okay, you can go to the sky or like down below, but it's also like not only is there like new stuff built up, but then the way they've now utilized inside of mountains and stuff with like caves or
Yeah.
whatever, it
Heck yeah.
it adds so much more like depth to the world and like it
Oh yeah.
changes the way you get around certain areas or like
For
it
sure.
becomes integral instead of like oh I'm just climbing up this thing it's like I'm climbing through this mountain to get to the top
Exactly.
it's yeah
So after I got to Lookout Landing for the first time, I ended up going north like they tell you to where Hyrule Castle got lifted up, and I
Mhm.
talked with the people there or whatever. You don't have the paraglider at that point, or I didn't have it at that point.
No.
And I spent probably there was a huge gaping chasm, so I was like, well, I need to dive down here and die for science just to see what's down there.
Of course.
And it's like Gloom's Approach or something like that.
I
Of course,
believe
the
it's
dog
called.
start going.
Yeah, they're scared of Gloom's approach.
They're scared of the gloom.
Bad stuff.
So I dive down there, and then I spend probably like 30 to 40 minutes trying to jerry rig a glider that softly goes down and just spirals around so that I
Oh
could
my
get to the
God.
bottom without the paraglider. It didn't work. I wasted a bunch of time. But then basically to get back to I just completely forgot the name, the town.
Lookout Landing.
Lookout Landing. To get back to Lookout Landing, I basically went underground the entire way back.
Mhm.
Like through and I got the knight's full gear, like
You did
the
that before you even
Oh
had the
my God.
paraglider?
yeah.
Gooey just did that 10 minutes
I
ago.
just did that
No,
right
that's
before.
what I went down there and I traveled all the way back to the town. While I was doing that, I found the Stalnox and I beat a Stalnox. And
Yep.
then I got back to the town and then I got the paraglider.
Literally all three of us did that today.
Yeah.
They just started doing that.
Yeah. That's wild that you did that before you even got the paraglider.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like I just found it. I was exploring and I just found an entrance and then I just followed the cave system, kept getting a bunch of
And it
items.
has like different branches and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like,
And to think you went in
Ugh.
the opposite direction because we all started
Yeah.
in Lookout Landing.
No, it's funny because like I had no clue where I was going because I didn't have the map part
Uh-huh.
of that yet. So I was coming back and I was like, I have no clue where I am. And I just got to a certain point where like it was clearing up in the cave and I started to hear music and I was like, that's the Lookout Landing theme. And I broke through the wall and I was back in the town and I was like, what the heck?
That is ridiculous, dude.
Yeah. But
That
that's
just goes
what
to
that's what this
show.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. The caves are one of the coolest parts of the game. The caves and the
Heck yeah.
wells are so much fun to explore.
yeah.
For sure.
Oh,
And
I
lots
love
of
the
weird
wells.
new little creatures and enemies and collectible.
Oh my gosh. One of
Thingies.
my favorite new enemies is the Horriblin.
Oh, they're great.
I
Yeah.
hate those things. They're so
were-
scary.
Nasty.
We were just talking about how they remind us of if mini blins in Wind Waker grew up. That's kind of like what they make the same freaking sounds. They're like wah, 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 wah,
Yeah.
wah, wah, and they like
Mhm.
bounce on their tails and they're like wah, wah, wah. They're so weird.
Nasty
they're,
little freaks.
They're freaky.
they're so silly and I love them, but they are kind of terrifying.
Yeah, they are horrible. They're very aptly named.
They live up to the name for sure.
I'm
like
finding
'em.
myself because of all this, and like we were talking about, actually something you pointed out, Nico, before we started recording is like, so in the game, there's all these different layers and levels of types of quests you can do, but then there's also like characters you will meet that will give you a quest like almost off the books type thing.
It's not
it's not in your
listed
quest log,
anywhere.
which is that's how a lot of things in like Breath of the Wild were
Mhm.
as well. And or like it was less like marked, I guess. And this, they do a good job of like having a bunch of quests, and you have a quest log, but it's not like it's not this thing where it's not like in the forefront of your mind, you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
you're like, it still has that same feeling of Breath of the Wild where you could just get lost wandering around for hours and not be like, oh crap, I got to do this thing, unless you
Mhm.
really care about it, which
Sure.
for me, I really have. I've been like, I love going back to Lookout Landing, seeing what's going on,
Which it's
like,
fun because it's Lookout Landing is like a living town because it's growing as you play, which is really cool. And so like you get to see it change a little bit as you keep doing stuff, and it just becomes more of a hustle and bustle. I love it.
they throw in like a new quest here or there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm finding myself like, that's why Nico, you keep telling me I need to go to Hateno, but I'm just
Go to
like,
Hateno.
I've
It's so
been like
good.
really,
It's awesome.
if you look, I've just been really like, I've just been kind of like following the
Mhm.
paths. The way I played Breath of the Wild was I was always abandoning my horse, and
Yeah.
I was always complaining like that because you can't till later teleport your horses. It's like kind of annoying because I'm like, well, sorry, I'm climbing a mountain. Here I'm like, I gotta look after me and these horses. We're going for rides, and I'm like combing, and I'm like, checking out all the paths and
Uh-huh.
finding all the little places on the way first, and then like just today, like going through that cave system was like one of those moments where I'm like, okay, now it's time to just like go hog wild and see like what's down in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I don't know, I just like the world. I like kind of just existing in the world and
Well,
like
and I
talking
mean,
to everyone.
I guess we haven't talked about the Great Sky Island a lot. We've really been focusing on Lookout Landing, but the Great Sky Island is a beautiful tutorial with a little bit
Yeah.
of a twist. It's like the twist at the end of getting the first 3 shrines, it's like, oh, of course there's another one. It's like it's
Yeah, I was
so
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
silly.
there are
We
4.
meet some really cool characters right off the bat. And
Oh
we're
yeah.
just like
Well, do we talk about the
thrown
early
You get
story?
the what?
I
I
kind of
We
wanted
should
to
start
early
touch on
about
the
like
story.
the
story.
opening.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, the opening
This very
sequence is
cool opening.
Let's talk
fun.
about the opening and then go back to the Great Sky Island because I want to talk about
Yeah,
both
yeah,
of these.
yeah.
Yeah, tell
Let's do.
what do you think?
Well, I think it's a sick opening. I think
It is.
everyone
Yeah.
agrees that was dope, right?
It
Yeah,
was
it's tight.
it was so good.
Yeah.
It's very scary walking
It's
down and
spooky.
like this is something that like
Nightmares.
part of what has been making this game already feel very different from Breath of the Wild is that I think I'm already getting my wish. It already seems very much more like narratively story driven
Oh
to
yeah,
the
it
point
is.
where like from that beginning opening through the Great Sky Island, I feel like there's already been as many cutscenes with dialogue or more than in Breath of the Wild, like total.
Yeah.
And we go down there. Zelda falls, Ganondorf wakes up, very scary. Which is something that I also love is that they gave him dialogue and like he's referencing Rauru and the Master Sword, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
what's going on? I
I
thought they were gonna go down and he was gonna wake up, say nothing, and just do a big bad thing. I'm so
Yeah,
glad
no.
that they
He
actually like
talks.
He's
yeah.
not a husk. He is a
It's
living
scary.
terrifying
Yeah.
being.
He's a guy.
He's
And
spooky.
for the lore nerds out there, I'm gonna have to jury's still out because I'm not that far into the game. We'll have to see
Sure.
Yeah.
what the true, you know, repercussions of this stuff is. But the backstory to this, a big key backstory piece is the imprisoning war.
Mhm.
Specifically, the imprisoning war. The
Mhm.
imprisoning
Mhm.
war only happens in the downfall timeline. So
Mhm.
if it's the same one, then Breath of the Wild and this have to be in the downfall timeline. Sorry to bring the timeline into this, but that's like specifically the backstory of A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have
Yeah.
more thoughts on that, but
You'll have more thoughts as you keep playing
It's
for
very
we'll
sure.
we'll definitely get
interesting.
more into it.
We
I
can
will
talk about that
say,
later.
do we know? Are we far enough in to talk about? Because in the opening, you see Zelda fall. Are we?
Yes.
Do we see anything
In the
to
opening,
see what goes beyond that?
no, we don't
Okay.
see
Okay.
anything other than when you get the recall ability. And you see she like you go into that little vision after you touch the yellow tear, right? You get recall, she
Yeah.
like grabs your hand and she's in the Zonai garb, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And then
the big thing that really got me is when Rauru at the beginning is like standing there after you've opened the doors and he says, you know, I've been waiting so long to meet you. Zelda told me that told me about you and it's so good to finally meet you. I was just like, wait,
yeah.
what? And then you
Wild
just
stuff.
jump.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And at the end,
so good.
at the end of that section, it does when it's doing the yellow light thing. It's like Link puts the warped Master Sword in there, and it seems to go through some sort of portal something to Zelda, which is probably back in time.
I mean, it's a pretty good assumption, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
that-
a whole lot going
yeah.
on right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So
But
I think.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
about just the way that they're doing the narrative is that it is a way more active story driven, which is something McKenna very specifically wanted, which is good, and I'm happy we're getting that because you're actually living through the cutscenes instead of just remembering them. There are still memories, which is great. So you get the Breath of the Wild storytelling style plus like Ocarina, Skyward Sword, Majora's Mask, kind of like classic 3D storytelling alongside it with full voice acting. So it's a wonderful combination of the two, and it's pretty regular throughout the entire thing. I've only done one like major quest, like major quest, And I can say there's just so much going on that the story is. I've only scraped the surface of the story, and I have no idea what's going on yet.
Yeah,
This
it
is
definitely it very much feels like the story is unfolding
Yes.
as you're
Yeah.
playing instead of just like, oh, we're just doing whatever and you know,
I
maybe we'll defeat Ganon one day.
right.
Yeah.
That's one of the aspects in which though I think there's gonna be element you mentioned it how there is a similarity to Breath of the Wild there with the memories, spoilers, memories, but I think the difference with Breath of the Wild is when it starts, like McKenna just said, they're like, you just basically gotta go get, um, or you don't even have to, but they're like, go to those divine beasts and like it'll help you in the end. But really, you can just go to the end and everything that ever happened to them. There are the younger or like the current alive,
The new champions.
descendants that have storylines in that, but
Yeah.
it overall doesn't feel that impactful.
No.
And I think yeah, like I said, we'd jump into later stuff, but it doesn't feel the jury's still out a little bit, but I feel like you are one thing that helps in general in the game is everyone else is like you, like everyone's trying to figure out what happens and what happened or whatever, and or like what's causing this, and like they make it part of the story, which is cool. Like there's like lore hunters basically in the game, and I think that makes it a little bit more engaging too, where it's you feel like it is a bit more of an actual investigation, and so it makes I think it's going to be similar to Breath of the Wild, where actually I think in these memories we're going to get a lot of important story moments like that we like have technically already happened or whatever, but I think just the way they're presenting it is going to be way more effective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild, it's like Link was the odd man out, and he was the only one that couldn't remember anything, and he's walking around to all these people, and they're having everything explained to him, and he's the one playing catch up. Whereas, like in this, there's clearly such a heavy focus right off the bat, which you can tell because it's the reason that Link and Zelda are going down below Hyrule Castle in the first place. There's so much research going on, specifically about the Zonai tribe and the Zonai people. They play such a huge role in this game.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that the Zelda tubers were right.
Yeah, they got it right.
Jeez Louise.
Can I ask a lore question to you guys?
Sure.
Will it take too long to get into? What did we know about the Zonai before this game? I should have watched
Honestly,
all those Zelda tubers.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, not a
almost nothing. They're mentioned by name, I think, twice in Breath of the Wild, maybe.
Yeah, a couple times.
There's like the Zonai ruins in Faron.
I think they were pretty much just like world building flair.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's like we knew that I think they were the same like barbaric tribe, but they at least said that they were an ancient tribe that used magic.
Yeah. That's basically all we knew.
That's pretty much it.
And the Zelda tubers, what they did is they uncovered everything that was related to the Zonai ruins, and then they found the Zonai swirl, the friggin' Zonai swirl, and looked at what connected to the Zonai around Hyrule, and they actually did find some stuff and pointed things out that it looks like the developers actually are using in Tears of the Kingdom, which is cool.
Yeah.
But
okay.
We did not know much at all.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, once the dragon heads started popping up everywhere in these trailers, I was like, okay.
Because that's like the biggest thing in the ruins is the dragon heads.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, Corey, you gotta get a little bit further when you talk about more lore.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. Well, it's the same thing too with like Rauru, because obviously that's the sage from Ocarina of Time, but it's like probably not the same guy, but maybe it is the same guy. But it also says that he shares the same name with the first king of Hyrule. but it's like, is he this? Is he the first king of Hyrule? Is there
There's
like a different guy? Are there 3 Rarus? Are there 1 Raru? I don't
there's
know.
actually there's 12. So the first
12
Raru.
Rarus.
It's the next
There's
game.
a
Yeah,
line
the
of
Legend
lore,
of
Raru.
the
Zelda,
lore videos that they're gonna be on this game.
the 12 Rarus.
The hidden Raru of Tears
Oh
of the Kingdom.
no.
Can I say a theory I have about the timeline?
Yeah.
I won't say what it's based on, so you can still experience. One of my theories is that, and it's not because like I don't dislike the timeline or whatever. I think like there's a chance that none of that stuff is like literal canon.
I mean, that's the other thought in the back of my mind is I'm like, this seems a little too on the nose, so there's a good chance that they're just retconning any official information, so
Sure.
none of this matters.
I will
I
also
would say it doesn't matter, but that yeah.
based on
We'll
some
see, though.
locations that I found in the depths that I will not mention the names of, but the names themselves make me think that past generations of Zelda are actually incredibly important to this game. So I don't know. I really don't know. Who
Yeah,
knows? Who
there-
knows?
There's also a possibility that on the flip side, there's also a possibility that everything is extremely canon.
Yeah, who knows?
And I could see
Even the
certain
contradictory things.
Oh yeah.
yes, and I could see the story and that like this is the same Raru and you know what I mean. Like I
Who
could
knows?
see this story doing that. I just always
Yeah.
I think
I
I've
mean-
always said I err towards like I feel like they're more likely to blow it all up and say nothing. It doesn't matter.
sure.
I agree.
But
I mean,
also,
that's part of
Gui, you and I talked about this. Raru in Ocarina of Time can take different forms. So
yeah.
what if it is?
He's like Dracula, yeah.
What if he's Dracula?
Yes, exactly my first thought.
He's
Just like
the
Dracula.
the sage of blood.
No, sorry, you do have a good
The
point. I'm
Temple
sorry.
of Light.
Yeah.
um no, but like Raru in Ocarina of Time, I mean, spoiler for Ocarina of Time, is Kapora Gabora. So it's like he can take different forms, and there's like some owl imagery in this game too that I'm just like, I don't know,
There's owl imagery.
Well, that's the
yeah.
other. Yeah, like some of the. There is a lot of owl stuff, but that's something else I was thinking of too. Is I was like, this can't be the same Raru, and then I was thinking about what we know of him from Ocarina of Time, and I was like, well, maybe because we don't really know that much. Maybe
we don't know
he's
a lot
like,
about him.
maybe he's like anciently old, and he was the first king of Hyrule or something crazy like that. We
Could've
just know
been.
he was a sage.
Good
But that is kind of something you mentioned, Nico. That is kind of was like the philosophy of like the way Breath of the Wild treated canon and like official information and stuff. It's like they decided, hey, you know what? The Rito isn't in the timeline with any of these other people, but like we're gonna put him in there, and we're also gonna put Zora in there, and we're gonna put the Koroks in there, and we're gonna have references to like every single portion of the timeline. We're gonna have a place called Arbiter's Grounds. We're gonna have stuff that has like backstory.
Breach of
that could only-
Demise. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it's certainly very possible too that that's just how they are, not just in Easter eggs. That could just be how they're treating like actual canon lore.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of the whole MO of the series, is that it's the legend of Zelda. So maybe all of whatever the canon we know is just like different tellings of legends, and it's like maybe we didn't actually play through it the way it happened. That's just part of the legend, and it's like,
And I mean, that's a good point, because a lot of what's happening in Tears of the Kingdom is based on, did you do things in Breath of the Wild? It's not like it's reading save data and checking. It's just like Tears of the Kingdom is built off of the assumption that certain things were completed in Breath of the Wild. You know, not that you ran
Right.
straight to the castle and went poo 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 and killed Ganon.
Right.
that's what I did.
You just went poo 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 with a stick
Just
and
went
killed
around,
Ganon.
Poo poo poo, he did.
Simple
Hot dang.
as. Well, there's still more to explore about the story, but yeah, we got to progress a little further. But
Yeah, we'll play some more.
So what about that? How about them Great Sky Islands? How do you guys think that compare it as a tutorial area directly to the Great Plateau.
It felt like I feel like it felt longer.
That's interesting. Because I
I
think
feel
Andy
like
and Al said that too. And I spent a ton of time there just because I was doing me things and trying to do things ways that they shouldn't be done. But I actually felt like there was more. Like I felt like if I wanted to get through it, I could have gotten through it quicker. Like
Okay.
I was just taking my time, making sure I explored
I think
every
it's
single thing.
I think it's easier than the Great Plateau. Um, if you're using your new abilities well, it's really not that hard. It's pretty straightforward, and there's kind of just like a single path you can take to do all three shrines, and then
Yeah,
get to the fourth really easy. But it's like there's such a learning curve with using the abilities, and I think that was the main focus of the Great Sky Island, is that they were afraid, like, okay, Ultra Hand is like a little lofty. We're gonna make sure people understand how it works, so we'll make really basic puzzles of build a bridge with 2 planks of
yeah,
wood. Good job.
Mhm.
Because you're gonna have to know how to do this stuff in the main game, and if you don't, you're
yeah.
screwed.
Here's a body of water that you've seen in 3 trailers. Make a little
Yes.
boat to get across it.
Make the exact same boat that Aonuma made.
Right. Yeah,
You can do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
but
I
yeah,
think with the Ultra Hand especially, there's a lot more, to learn. Compared to, I guess, its equivalent of Magnesis, where in Breath of the Wild, you're like, oh, okay, this is Magnesis, this is how it works. With the Ultra Hand, it's like, okay, this is how it works. I can make a million different things with it.
yeah.
There's lots of different devices, and like the
Yeah.
The Great Sky Island doesn't even like scratch the surface of the devices.
No.
But
yeah,
There's so
Yeah,
much
there's
more.
like multiple shrines that are just teaching you how to use different devices
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Like there's like 1,000 like sub mechanics in this game. It's like, yeah, you learn
There
those
really
like
are.
whatever 4 things, but you also all the Zonai devices like have their own utility, which is an aspect of Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of, you know, inner working mechanics there, but here it just feels like there's, it's like 10 times the amount or something.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
I found it longer, and in Breath of the Wild, it's like you see all your shrines, and it feels like easier to like go directly walk to each of them. Whereas in this, like I saw how they laid out the shrines in the Sky Island, and it felt more like, oh, here's like the path you gotta take, and
Mhm.
um but yeah, I will say, like, yeah, I left that island like knowing how to build stuff. Like
Yeah.
it was a really good tutorial, I thought. It was fun. It was really fun, like
It is.
messing around with different it'll probably seem like not as fun going back, but even just like what's like the simplest way I can build
Yeah.
this thing to get across. And
I
like
Yeah.
making the ricketiest thing is so fun.
Yeah, exactly.
the biggest challenge on the Great Sky Island for me was getting to the flux construct to try and fight it before I
okay.
had a paraglider. I had to go back after I got a paraglider to fight it because I just could not get to that island for some reason.
I haven't gone back up there yet.
I
I
had
haven't
so
gone
much
back to
trouble.
that
That
island.
spot, yeah.
Oh, I went back. I just went back today to see if I could do that flux construct, and I killed it before it woke up. So I've
Yeah.
leveled up a little bit since then.
It's
Okay.
probably meant for in the beginning because I beat it when I was up there.
I was
I
too
actually beat it
afraid.
twice because I beat it and then I couldn't figure out how to get off of the island because I didn't have all my abilities yet. So I had to
Mhm.
like find another way off.
Wow.
Because you get the
What
little thing and then
is the other way off? Dying.
yeah.
I think
I
as
like
I played Breath of the Wild, I was less inclined to explore the Sky Island. One, because of how it was laid out, I felt like, oh, there's a kind of a path. If I just follow it, I'll see like most of the cool stuff they want to show. I didn't see that flux construct though, but then also because I know, like, I was like, I want to get off of here and get my. Well, I wasn't like mad about it, but I was like, I want to just. I was like playing through it more directly because I was like, I want
Yeah.
to get all the, all the doodads and traversal
Yeah.
things like right away, And then when I was done with it, I was like, dang it, I still don't have the paraglider or whatever.
Yeah.
So I kept, it kept kind of propelling me through that first part. And then I was like, then that's when the game slowed down for me and I started really looking around,
That's kind of why it feels more guided than the
Yeah.
Great Plateau
It
to me.
does.
And I think the Great Plateau, like we've talked about how part of what makes it such a good tutorial area is that it's a microcosm for Breath of the Wild as a whole.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
everything in that game pretty much condensed into one neat little package. So a lot of the obstacles you're trying to get over are as simple as the shrine is up there and I have to climb, but I don't have enough stamina to climb. So I need to figure out like do I cook some sort of elixir that boosts my stamina to get up there, or do I have to like map out my climbing path? And a lot of that stuff isn't really as much of a concern in the Great Sky Islands because it's teaching you, the new mechanics like the Ultra Hand and Recall and the gliders and the fuse ability, all that stuff negate a lot of those simple
Mhm.
concerns from Breath of the Wild. So it feels a lot more like just really learn how to use these big abilities and you'll be able to figure anything out in the
Yeah.
future. And it's funny because like I spent most of my time just making sure I explored everything that was there, and then by the time that I was done, and I just needed to do the rest of the shrines and then hit the points to get off the island, I was like, okay, let me gather up all of those big floating platforms, and I fused like 4 of them together to make the biggest bridge ever,
Wow.
and just brought it around with me.
Great. That's the way to do
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah. And there was
Jeez.
one small sky island where I cut down all the trees and just made a huge log bridge.
There's been a lot of log bridges
Yeah.
out
Oh,
there in
yeah.
the world.
Can't even mention all the things I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah, I've seen some funny stuff.
Those poor quarks.
I mean, there's so much more of this game to talk about, but
And
we
we'll be
might have
talking
to-
about it for a long time.
Does anyone else have
I-
anything else they like really wanted to get out there before we call it?
Yeah, we haven't talked about the music at all, which
Wow.
Yeah,
we
I was
need to
thinking
talk
about
about
that.
It's
the
cool.
final trailer, but we talked about the sax being featured, and that
Oh
seems
my
to be
God.
the sky instrument. There's
Uh-huh.
always a little. It's kind of like the equivalent of the piano in the sky. You
Yeah.
just hear these little
Yeah.
little sax ditties and
I've heard that in my time
the
as a musician.
island and
The
and diving
saxophone
through
is the piano of the skies.
That's what they say.
That's what
And,
they say, you know.
It's very cool, and I think Nico and I have both done this. We've
Mhm.
dove off of a sky island all the way down into a chasm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Oh,
go
that's
into the
so
chasms, the way the music works while you're falling is so cool. And hearing it go from like the sax to that, it's awesome.
You have to do it. If you guys haven't done it, go to the biggest sky island you can that is close to a chasm and just dive all the way from the sky all the way into the depths. It is a great experience. It's very fun.
That sounds wild.
It's great.
The sax is almost like I'm really getting the sense more from playing the game now. It's because the piano that was evoking the broken Hyrule Kingdom, and now the sax is evoking this ancient Zonai kingdom, which feels more advanced, and now it's reflecting in the game actually there because the people in the game, it's becoming slightly more technologically advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is sort of like this. It makes it feel like it's like a little more modern. Like the saxophone, I associate with like in the grand scheme of history, more modern music.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So if it gives it this, like it sounds like this like old ancient something happened, but it's like the saxophone. I feel like
little
that. I don't know.
new age Zonai, kind of.
Yeah. And in general, I just love I'm like loving the music as part of it, but just like that overall world and how it feels. And we're like scanning. When you do the tower, I'm sure Corey, you do the tower.
Yeah,
You go
heck
and
yeah, that's
scan it.
so
You got
cool.
I
the
love
The
that.
music in
Ethernet
that is
cable.
awesome.
The
The
I've-
music
and
this is-
presumably later we're gonna be building cars.
This
You
is a
know.
little silly, but every time I go up and do a tower, when he goes up in the air, I catch myself every time just going like I'm breathing
Smelling
in
the
fresh
fresh
air. I don't know. It feels so good and natural to do that. And I'm like, this is silly. Why
Oh,
am I
yeah.
doing this? But I can't. It's a natural reaction. I can't help it.
Yeah, that's such a cooler way of getting map area than just like going plugging in your thing,
Bloop.
drips down, you get it.
We're literally
That's
scanning.
so
We haven't
cool.
even talked about Pura.
Plug in
and
your Switch charger and
Joshua.
jump up.
Oh,
Pura
yeah,
and
the
Joshua
characters.
are
Joshua.
awesome. I love them.
Ah,
Pura's back to her
Pura's great.
20-year-old sassy self, and I love
Yeah, I'm
it.
glad. That's the one good thing that Age of Calamity has contributed to this is an adult Pura design.
You know what? It's true, and it
Thank
is a little different.
To-
It's slightly different than Age of Calamity because I think
Yeah.
she's technically a little younger now in Tears of the Kingdom,
Oh.
body wise, than she was in Age of Calamity. I'm not sure, but I read a diary. She is 20 years old in this game. Just so you know,
Cool.
Okay.
Oh,
read a
okay.
diary. Read diaries, people. They're all
Read
over the
diaries.
place. Read them.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm like I said, there's more we got to get into, but we just can't do it now.
It's
But
too much.
we're gonna
We will.
We'll
we're gonna
record
probably check
another
in-
short 50-minute video.
it's been
Next time.
50 minutes.
47. No, it's not
We
that
gotta
bad.
get back to playing.
Yeah.
We have to go back to playing.
Yeah, we've
But
been
yeah,
talking too much. I
everyone-
want to go play Tears of the Kingdom. Come on.
Next week we'll have another probably just more general videos until we beat it, and then probably we'll just keep honing in on specific topics. So, in fact, if people want to leave topics in the comments,
Some questions? Early game questions.
Yeah, leave some questions.
early
too.
games, try not to spoil it. Try not
Yeah.
to spoil it.
Early game.
Early game.
I'm really good at winking. I actually can wink, I think. Yeah.
Well, on that note, thanks everyone watching. We're excited to continue our quest through this game with you, and
Oh, yeah.
we'll see you very soon.
Oh no. No, don't do it again.
Ah!
No.